Hello, Nation. Today we're going to talk about the ketogenic diet. And with me is Adriana Valencia, our star dietitian that does a lot of things at TCOID, is on staff at UCSD, along with myself. So, Adriana, what is the ketogenic diet?
So it's become kind of a very popular diet. It was actually first developed to control seizures in children. We still don't understand the mechanism behind it, but one thing that would happen with these kids is a lot of them would start to lose weight, and that would be a concern when they're growing, but that was kind of where the trend came from. So the ketogenic diet is basically a very low carbohydrate diet, and it's very high in fat. There usually is no type of calorie restriction. It's more focused on the lower carb aspect.
And so, how does this compare to the Atkins diet? You know, and Richard Bernstein, who has type 1, he's always promoting low carbs. And even, how does that compare to the Paleo diet?
So ketogenic diet is similar to like an Atkins or lower carb diet, but it's usually even a little bit more strict and even promotes more things with fat in them. So for example, an Atkins diet maybe wouldn't count something like spinach towards the carbs, but something like a keto diet counts absolutely everything. Most people do about 20 to 35 grams of net carb on a keto diet. So you have to count even things like broccoli that we wouldn't count, or even something like this jerky that actually does have carbs in it. An Atkins diet wouldn't really count.
Now, the ketogenic diet, I know it's popular because everyone thinks they're going to lose weight from it. And so, how low is low when you talk about carbohydrates?
So most people do about 20 would be the lowest I've seen, but the thing that's tricky about this diet is there's so many variations of it, and typically patients find their resources on blogs. So that's kind of the tricky thing.
Now, when you count up the carbs and you read food labels, like for example, let's just look at the beef jerky, are you supposed to subtract the total carbs and subtract the fiber? Because I know that a lot of people are going, well, 10 carbs, 5 grams of fiber, so it's only 5 grams towards their total. And you know, people keep track of it on their apps.
Right.
Some of my patients and friends have lost a significant amount of weight.
So definitely a lot of people who follow this, like a lot of patients or friends that you may know, can lose quite a bit of weight on
And
the
they
keto
need
diet.
to lose weight.
Which is why people most start it. And we'll talk a little bit more about what it looks like in patients who have diabetes. But people do tend to lose weight on it, but the problem is it's not sustainable for a long period of time. You can start having issues with constipation. A lot of patients start getting increase in cholesterol level as well, so that can be dangerous.
That happened to one of our patients
That's
that we
right.
follow. Yeah.
That's right. So he was doing really well. He showed us the CGM trend, and it was completely flat.
Yeah.
And he liked it, but he had his labs drawn, and he became very nervous. And I think his cardiologist told him to stop because his cholesterol level went up quite a bit.
Did you hear the siren? That's the carb police.
They're coming.
Now, give our viewers an idea of what you would eat in a typical day, including snacks, if you're really trying to be on the ketogenic diet. And just to say that when there's very little carbs, which is primarily sugar, your brain is saying, hey, we need glucose, and it starts breaking down your fat. And that's where the word keto comes from, and that's why people lose weight.
Right. So it was something like a ketogenic diet for breakfast would be something like eggs cooked in something like this coconut oil here, or butter, regular bacon, coffee made with half and half, or the coconut oil. The lunch is usually like a large piece of meat, like steak, for example, with some kind of low carb veggie, and maybe cheese or avocado added in, and the dinner would be something similar. The snacks would be something similar to the cheese or these roasted seaweed snacks, which have a gram of carb, 2 grams for the entire pack. But even this jerky, like I mentioned earlier, like Dr. Edelman said, 1 ounce has 5 grams of carb. So if I had 2 ounces of this, that's 10 grams of carb. That's my carb for half the day. So
Yeah,
it's hard to follow long term for those reasons.
Very, very hard. What about in people with diabetes? Is it safe? We talked about the cholesterol, but what about, we talked about blood sugar control even, and a lot of people promote Richard Bernstein, of the Bernstein diet, which is really super low carbs. And that keeps the blood sugars very stable, especially if you have type 1 diabetes. What else should we talk about in people with type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
Right. So I have a lot of patients who ask me this question in clinic, and I always first I tell them about the whole spiel with the cholesterol in the long term, and I tell them it is safe for somebody to follow this diet with diabetes as long as they're very aware of their blood sugars. So if you have somebody who has type 1, they want to make sure that they're spoke to their provider about it, and possibly more than likely reduce their Lantus or their whatever their long-acting insulin is, and their mealtime, because they're not going to need as much because they're not eating as much carb. So it's more the fear of them having hypos if they stay on the same insulin regimen. So that's kind of more the concern with patients with diabetes. But like you mentioned, that patient, their blood sugars tend to look very flat.
Do they have to take vitamins or supplements?
So it typically is recommended to take some kind of supplement, just because you're missing out on a lot of vitamins and minerals in the foods that you're having. And a lot of patients end up needing sometimes some kind of fiber supplement because your fiber intake is also pretty low.
So, in your experience, you see a lot of patients, a lot of them are interested in weight. A lot of them have tried this ketogenic diet. What is your feeling towards, does it work, doesn't work? As it's kind of a general overall statement as we get to the end.
Ketogenic diet can really help promote weight loss and can really help keep blood sugars flat. The issue can be we don't really know the long-term effects in terms of cardiovascular health. Not for adults. For kids it's been studied, but for adults and long-term we don't. And I just feel like a lot of diets where there's some kind of food group completely eliminated or restricted is very hard to follow long-term. Yeah. So I think that it can definitely help with weight loss. It can help with blood sugar control, but it's hard for people to follow in the long term. And like I said, we don't know the full effects of it yet.
Yeah, I think you said it all. Well, thank you so much, Adriana. So long, Nation. Enjoy your next bite of carbs.